Well, it's great to have Lex Luger here on Sports Spectrum. Hi, Lex. How are you?
Hey, Jason. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Great to talk with you. I always like to start with the main thing because I think that focuses our conversation, and we go right into it and start with faith. So I'd love to have you share a little bit of who Christ right now is in the life of Lex Luger, and we'll get it started right there.
Wow, man, we do get right into it, Jason. I love it. He's just my guiding light. He's my purpose. Every morning I just get up and give him thanks. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, just thank you for the gift of the day, for the beat of my heart and the breath of my lungs. I mean, he's the essence of who we are and why we're here. So he's my everything, and everything else comes off of that. I'm here to love God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength. And when the Pharisees and Sadducees asked Jesus like a trick question about the Ten Commandments, he said, well, just love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love thy neighbor, meaning you're here to love me. I made you in my image to love me, and I love you. And then he wants us to have a servant's heart. Loving your neighbor is just to have a servant's heart. People joke with me before Christ, before April 23rd of 06, when I got saved, it was me, myself, and I. Now it's Jesus, others, and then you. So it sets your priorities completely backwards of the way the world teaches us. But it makes my life such a joy every day, and I'm thankful for each day because I know it's a gift from him, and everything comes from him, and that sets everything in its proper order each morning.
No, that's very well said. I love the proper order mindset, and we're going to talk about your career and sort of the arc of you coming to Christ in a little bit, but let's go back to growing up. Did you have a faith growing up? Was God even a part of your life?
Spiritually dead, Jason. Totally unchurched. But my mentors that God surrounded me with right after I got saved, a bunch of godly men and women, said I was a clean slate because I had no preconceived religious ideas. So man, I got radically saved, rode to Damascus, and I was all in. Okay, what do we do? What do us Christians do now? Well, you get up in the morning and you spend time with him first. I mean, I don't go to the gym first. No, you spend time with him first, then you can go to the gym. I go, okay. I was like in Christian boot camp. They loved it because Lex, you were easier because we didn't have to get rid of any religious junk. You were a clean slate.
That's amazing when you think about it. But you said your mentors and people around you. Who were some of those people that were people of faith that were encouraging you? Yeah.
So many. Pastor Steve, who led me to the foot of the cross in that hotel room on April 23rd of 06. He was my jail chaplain when I was incarcerated, who I met in jail. He hunted me down afterwards and led me to the foot of the cross a few months later. Dr. Frady, I belonged to First Baptist Atlanta here. Obviously, Dr. Charles Stanley, a huge mentor to me. Billy Graham. I mean, I go on and on. I've got so many. I've had so many mentors in my life and my small group at church, and just spiritually mature men who just loved on me and taught me how to pray. I didn't know how to pray. How to read the Bible and study it and apply it into my everyday life. God knew I was totally, he just surrounded me with a mature, godly, incredible man.
Wow.
He really did. He knew it. God knows exactly what we need, when we need it.
I remember talking to Daryl Strawberry on this podcast, the former Mets great. And
I met Daryl.
He's an incredible guy.
Man.
And you guys have similar career arcs in some cases. When you look at top of the world, best in your job, if you will, as far as baseball for Daryl and you in wrestling, everything was about you. You had people patting on your back, fans were cheering you, or in some cases booing you, right? And yet Daryl went through a lot, went through some legal troubles, just really went through hell and back. And now he's living his life for Jesus. And he would tell the story quite often of Gary Carter, who was one of his teammates, and the man was a devout follower of Jesus, Gary Carter, the late Gary Carter, God rest his soul. And Daryl said he wasn't really kind of seeing that or paying attention to it, but he looks back now and sees the seeds that were being planted in his life. I say that because I'm really curious, was there anyone in the wrestling world who was like a Gary Carter, if you will, to Daryl Strawberry for you, that maybe you didn't see it or you just weren't interested in hearing about it, but you look back now and say, okay, at least that person maybe was planting some seeds into my life?
Not only did I see it, I got smacked right in the face with it. Sting, who's my best friend to this day, I'm going to go speak at his church on Father's Day coming up. He got saved back in '98. And I was 8 years after that. Our friendship goes almost 4 decades.
Wow.
But we really became estranged at that point because I like when he's tried to, as a brand new believer, tried to share the gospel with his best friend. I gave him the Heisman, totally. And I thought I'd lost my best friend. I was angry with him actually that he was. I go, man, save that religious stuff, man. What's happened to you? You're not going to go out and party anymore and do what we do on the road. And oh my gosh, are you serious? So yeah, it was around me, but I totally at that stage of my life rejected it.
So what's that like? Let's talk to the audience, the person who's maybe listening because it's Lex Luger on Sports Spectrum,
Right.
but maybe they don't know Jesus, or maybe they got friends who are like you and I that love the Lord. And, we don't want to be in their face and push it. And I don't know what it was like with Sting, with you, but my brother was like that with me. For 3 years, my brother Chris came to faith in Jesus, and I saw it and I was like, oh, I don't, what is this, all this religious thing? And then it came into my life, and I accepted Christ when I was 27 on Mother's Day, 2001. So What is it about that?
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah indeed. But what is it about, that encouragement that you might have for some people that are listening that maybe aren't there yet, but they got some spiritual people, if you will, in their life?
Well, I think God knows when we're ready. We all have our own journey. I would just encourage them. I wish I had listened and been open to it at that point, but I wasn't ready. My ears, my mind, my heart just weren't open to it. I was totally closed to it at the time. I guess my words to them would be to gosh, give it a good listen. If you have someone in your life who loves you and cares about you, just if they're willing to sit down with you and share the beautiful free gift of the gospel. Here it is, the free gift of forgiveness and a plan of purpose for your life, and the beauty of that done on the cross for us, already finished, all wrapped up for us, and one beautiful present. And but I didn't want to even entertain the thought of accepting that free gift. But when it was presented to me by Pastor Steve in that hotel room on April 23rd, 06, it was the most beautiful gospel presentation. It's not how we present it. God knew I was ready on that day to receive and hear the gospel. So they have to be ready, but at the same time, I would encourage them if they've got any inkling of or someone in their life that we can share that with them. Their lives will be changed forever, literally eternity, if they're willing to listen. I encourage them my life in the past, we still go through stuff, but now God walks us through it. So we never have to go through the adversity now. I've always got God to take me through the adversity in my life now. So stuff still happens. We live in a broken, fallen world. Stuff happens to all of us still, whether you're a Christian or non-Christian. But now I've got the friends and the family of Christ and God to walk me through it. So I would plead with them to please consider they've got a friend or family member. Please sit down and have a conversation with them about it.
That's sometimes the hardest thing to do with someone you're close with, especially family members. I know it's hard for me. What was that like for you after 2006 with the people that you knew that were close to you, your friends, certainly people in the wrestling business, because you're at a pretty low point at that time in your life. And you're also in your mid to late 40s, if I'm doing my math correct.
47.
47, right. So
go
ahead.
Time?
I was just going to say that time of, in terms of suddenly you have this newfound faith and you want to share it with the world, but sometimes it's hardest to share with those we're closest to.
It is. I went through the period where I kind of threw up on quite a few people about it. You're so excited to share it.
Yeah.
We're love God with our heart, soul, mind, and strength. serve others, and whenever possible, share the gospel, right? So my mentors also taught me that I guess you would call it, sometimes bold is good, but they taught me to have some discernment about sharing the gospel. And that they told me your people closest to you can be the most difficult. I mean, when Jesus went back to Nazareth, he was like, wow, I guess we're going to move on to the next town. Because they're like, aren't you Joseph, the carpenter's son? There's a living Christ, God, the Son of God, right in front of him, right? Yes. Like, aren't you Jesus, the son of Joseph, the carpenter? You know, so yeah. But getting back to your original question, my family, I had so much drama that I was putting up the collateral damage of my friends and family who cared about me and those who stayed with me. I chased a lot of them off, which I understand consequences. But my family was so relieved that they weren't getting a phone call from the jail cell and stuff that I'd been arrested again and stuff. They were just, well, my family was unsaved, but they were happy that there wasn't the drama.
Right.
And most of my friends, like at the gym and everything I went to, I don't know if it's kind of funny, Jason, they all thought when they saw me in the gym working out with Pastor Steve, he started working out with me, and they go, because I always worked out by myself because it was all about me, right? and they go, man, Lex is working out with somebody. Who's that guy you're working out with? Like, they go, oh, his name's Steve. They go, who is he? I go, oh, he was my jail chaplain. They're all like, I heard later on, the rumor was that I was on some new kind of drug that I wasn't letting them in on because I must have been hallucinating. If the Lex Luger they knew was working out with a jail chaplain, Lex is on some kind of new hallucinogenic drug.
Right.
For real. How crazy is that?
Yeah. Well,
that was the initial response. Lex is like, you know how people go religious now?
Yeah.
Like, you got to be kidding. Lex? No, not Lex.
Mm-hmm.
That was the initial response from most people. I did a radio interview. This is funny. I did a radio interview. I had sports talk show guys. It was like the big sports talk show in Atlanta here. And I was on their show a lot, pre-Christ, BC.
Yes.
And I used to hang out with some of the guys. We'd go out, drink, dinner and drinking, that kind of thing. They had me on the show almost right after I got saved. And I brought my buddy with me, one of my mentors. And after the first segment, how we don't realize we even have a different countenance after we're saved, that God gives us a different look. And just the way we talk, it can be so different. It's so dramatic. We don't realize it, but other people do. After the first segment of the show, they usually had me on for like the whole 2 hours. We talk sports, laugh. And we had fun in the first segment. It went really well. But Nick, my one buddy, took the guy aside and hey, is he like pranking us? And he goes, what are you talking about? My buddy John. He told me this afterwards. He goes, the guy took me aside at the first segment. They thought you were pranking them, the way you were acting and talking. He goes, you weren't like cussing in between takes and stuff. You weren't. They go, well, I said, well, of course not, John. God put a guard over my lips. I don't do that. I try to never do that anymore. And he goes, well, they thought you were pranking them, and they were going to cut you off the show because they thought you were like they would end the segment because they what was going on with him. Because I acted so different, not in a bad way, and it was going good. But John goes, no, man, that's legit. Lex's life has been transformed by the blood of the Lamb, Jesus Christ. And they're like, I mean, yeah, it was pretty funny. You brought up a lot of the responses. It was wild. It was a wild journey right from the start.
Totally. And that makes sense because there was a clear picture. That's why I'm always envious. I mean, I was 27, you were 47, but I'm always envious of people who grew up Christians. And sometimes that can be hard too, because you kind of just get acclimated to it.
Yeah.
But they've always been that way, if you will, where you and I were different people. And then suddenly God gets a hold of us and something's changed. God got a hold of my language as well. I was a cusser, like, like
Yeah.
nobody's business. And suddenly I'm not. And you see a few people like, wait a minute, you talk differently. They notice it without me telling
Oh
them.
yeah.
And
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know, it's part of our witness for Christ, and it stands out. I'm not saying that you'd ever want to be saved when you're 27 or 47, but it does seem like God does something miraculous in some people when it happens later in life.
And your countenance, a lot of times, I was smiling more and everything. They're like, Lex never ever smiled. What is going on?
Yeah.
On with him, the joy of Jesus, right? I mean,
Yes.
absolutely crazy. The response, yeah, most definitely, big reaction.
Do you ever think about what if you had known Christ when you were 27, let's say my age, when I was a follower of Christ, if you would have continued as a wrestler and all the accolades that came your way and the total package and the championships and all the glamour and the glitz and all the money or whatever it was coming your way, do you think if you had gotten saved younger that maybe none of that even happens?
Well, I look at it that I hoped that if I got saved the way I did at 47 or 27, I always look back like, wow, what a presence I could have been as a leader in the locker room. Because I remember football, like the FCA guys,
Sure.
Fellowship of Christian Athlete. I respected those guys. Like when I had a problem or issue, I almost went to them like my dad, and I would talk to them. I knew they were religious, as I called it. So I'd go to them if I really needed some advice, because I knew my bros I hung out with wouldn't maybe always give me the straight shot. So I wish I had been at 27. Oh my gosh, so I broke those. What a platform for Jesus, and my presence in the locker room and the leadership I could have been a light that could have drawn people to want to know more about Jesus in the locker room and fans and interviews and all the people you're around. Oh my gosh, what a sphere of influence I could have had back then I didn't have as
But
a non-believer, for sure.
but yet you go through all that and get to all the fame. Daryl Strawberry says this all the time. Like, I'm glad I played baseball even without Jesus, because it gave me this platform now that
Absolutely.
I could share the gospel and people might want to listen a little closely because I happen to play baseball. You feel the same
Total
way.
agree with Daryl,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
And what a platform it's become for you. Let's talk about a little bit on, I was really curious because I've seen some other wrestlers. Like, I saw Hulk Hogan on the 700 Club, I think recently, and he was on Joe Rogan's podcast as well, and he was wearing a shirt that said John 3:16 and talking about how he gave his life to Christ. Not that he was religious or God. And Hulk's, I think, 70. He's a little older than you.
Uh-huh.
I'm just curious, why do you think something begins to click for a lot of people, especially some famous people that you would say, later in life?
I think if we go into the book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon, the empty chase, the richest, most powerful man, had hundreds of, women and just wives, and just big parties.
Yeah.
And in the end, he said it's just having a reverence for God and honoring God with our lives is all that really matters in the end. Because eternity, what's really matters, not this temporal, worldly success we have. Nobody had more money. You could combine Bezos and Gates and Musk and all that. They were pocket change compared to Solomon back then.
That's right.
The Bible tells he's the richest man that ever has or ever will live. My mentor told me he had thrones made out of pure ivory and talk about opulence and partying and womanizing and all that. But he talked about it's like an empty chase, like trying to chase the wind. So I think a lot of celebrities and famous people, gosh, I have money, I have fame, I got all tons of stuff and luxury houses and beach houses and mountain homes and at ski resorts in Aspen, and I got all this stuff. But in a way, I always felt there had to be more. Still felt empty, because you're drinking out of a cup there's no bottom to it. You keep on getting more and more stuff and accumulating more and more stuff. You think finally I'm going to be totally satisfied. But God's written upon our hearts. He gave us a heart for Him, for eternity, and nothing else. Nothing this world has to offer can ever fill that but Jesus. there's an empty space in our heart without Jesus in there. That nothing, I don't care how much money or fame, or because I've been around not just much, but around a lot of really famous, wealthy people,
Yeah.
and they were all on the same empty chase. Looking back now, there's got to be a better party, a better maybe. If I got a presidential Rolex now. Oh, Lex, they got a platinum one out now. Oh, maybe that'll do it. Oh, I got a top line Mercedes. Then I pull up in Atlanta here, and Usher pulls up next to me in a Bentley. Well, maybe if I have a Bentley, when you fly first class, people get in the plane with you. Wow, I'm surprised you don't fly private.
Right.
Then you got to fly in a private jet. It never ends.
It's never enough.
It's the empty, endless chase. What's missing? Now I know it's Jesus.
It's the gospel. Yeah. Tell me about, you mentioned Sting and him kind of pouring into you as one of your best friends, estranged a little bit.
Oh, still to this day. Yeah.
I was just going to say, what is that
Special
like now with that relationship with one of these legends as well in the wrestling world and Sting, and you guys are now walking with Jesus together?
Oh, talk about the difference instead of going to the bar. We're in our room, like doing a Bible study together, and just people think, "Oh my gosh, are you guys kidding me?" Oh, it's so precious. It's so good. Words cannot describe it. I tell people, what's it like being when you back then? Now I go, it's experiential. Words, you can't even put it into words. The difference. So yeah, our relationship's very, very, very special, for sure. And he never gave up on me. He used to call me when I was at my worst, had pretty much given up hope. Guess Satan loves us to give up hope in our lives. And I wouldn't answer any of my friends or family's phone calls. They all were hanging on to, like, if I ever left them a voicemail, I'd call them all messed up, high, messed up. And they saved the message. They thought that might be the last time they ever hear my voice. And Sting would call me, leave me a voicemail. He'd call me by my given name, Larry. He'd say, I know you're not going to answer the phone, Steve, Stinger. He'd go, Steve, I want you to know I'm your friend. I'm always here for you. I love you. And he'd leave me a little message. I used to play that message back sometimes, like dozens of times, those messages, when I'd just pretty much given up hope and didn't care whether if I even woke up the next day, because that's where I was at. But I didn't know that was where I needed to be, because that empty chase, when I got to some people call it the end of your rope, whatever, I couldn't fix things. I was the fixer. I was going to buy more stuff, or I'd make a new move, or I was going to come up with a new plan. When things went bad, I'm in jail. Well, I'll come out. I'll figure it out. I got to the point where I couldn't figure things out anymore. You know the songs, You Just Take the Wheel? Oh, yeah. I was at the point when Steve gave me the gospel presentation, that beautiful, pure gospel message in that hotel room on April 23rd. Man, I was like, man, Jesus, take the wheel. I'm done. I don't want to run this. I don't want to steer this car anymore. I was ready.
So we have listeners, I'm sure, that have relatives or friends that were in the spot that you were in 2006. I have a dad who's been through alcoholism and jail and things as well. He's doing good now, but I know what that was like to pray for him and to feel hopeless in some cases too. Like, this might be the last time I talk to my dad.
Yeah.
I wonder what encouragement you'd have for those people, for the people like myself, the people who right now have friends and family who are just it's not clicking for them yet. What encouragement would you have for them, knowing that you had somebody like Sting and others who were not giving up on you?
You just said it. I mean, people always said, well, if Les can get saved, anybody gets saved. If Daryl can get saved, anybody gets saved. Right. So no matter how bad off they think, sometimes we get in the way and we enable their condition. Sometimes we got to trust God, to pray for them and understand, be for them if they really need us for something that really matters. But I mean, sometimes that's exactly where they need to be, and just pray for them. And my family never gave up. Don't give up on them, because with God, there's always hope. There's always hope. Don't ever give up on them.
What's life like today for Lex Luger? Are you still involved in wrestling a little bit with the
Oh yeah,
WWE?
I'm on. I'm still. People who thought here's another God does the impossible. When I left WWE, you don't leave WWE. If they want to get rid of you. But I left WWE to go back to WCW on that first Monday Nitro that started the Monday Wars, and everybody said that Vince McMahon and Linda McMahon were watching, and they said Linda turned to him and said, "If you ever bring him back here." Because Vince and I were real close. I didn't give any notice, and I walked out as a surprise guy on that first Nitro. And I just signed my third 5-year deal on the Legends program, which is an incredible program with WWE. Only God can do that. So they send us out on weekends. We do all the fan interactive stuff because the guys are in the ring bouncing around. So they send us out, us Legends, to take pictures and photos with the fans, and just. It's a great program. They put us in the 2K games, and it's a really cool program. You get to meet the fans in a way that watched you, and the people watched you. They'll bring their kids to the events, fan direct events. This is who I watched, and it's just a lot of fun. And it's like a reunion. I get to hang out with all my buddies I wrestled with. It's a lot of fun. It's a great program. I still, of course. I speak in churches and share my story, of course. So I love to do evangelism. So I do that whenever possible as well. So it's kind of that keeps you definitely busy on the weekends, because most all that's on the weekends.
Totally.
They call me the king of men's breakfasts. Everybody loves to bring me in for the men's breakfasts on Saturday mornings with the guys, because they want to hear about a little bit of wrestling, and Jesus. So I'm like the king of. I give my testimony usually at men's breakfasts on Saturday morning. I love it. We have a blast.
There's usually good bacon at these things, Lex. That's my thing. Can we have some good bacon at these breakfasts?
Oh yeah, it draws a crowd, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't know if I want to go hear anything about Jesus, but I hear they got some pretty good grub there. So we'll bring guys in, a lot of unsaved guys in.
Or they were wrestling fans, like you say, back in the 80s and 90s. So what a great way to share the gospel with them. I wanted to ask you, because I saw the WWE Legends biography that was just fantastic, really well done. And I don't think for people who don't know your whole story realize, but you're in a wheelchair right now, correct?
I am, for safety. I have, God's given me the most miraculous recovery from a catastrophic spinal injury. I live on my own.
Wow.
I can feed myself, bathe myself, drive a regular car safely. I can walk some and stand some, but for safety, when I'm traveling and stuff, I usually bring a walker or a wheelchair, so they have to pick me up off the floor.
That's true.
But yeah, I definitely spend quite a bit of time with with a wheelchair or a walker, definitely.
Yeah, I think my point in bringing that up was to let people know, you still find joy. You're still smiling.
Oh my gosh.
And God's taken some of the stuff away from you, if you want to say that, or you've taken it away from yourself, from what you were in the 80s and 90s, being this, larger than life wrestling figure. And yet you're sounding to me like you're more joyful today than you've ever been.
Now, Jason, I'm going to throw a Bible verse at you, 2 Corinthians 12:9. When Apostle Paul had a thorn in his flesh, I'd say a spinal cord injury and limited mobility is a thorn in your flesh. And Paul kept on asking him, like, he wanted like a full healing and to be the old Paul. And God said, my grace will always be sufficient for you, Paul. My strength works best in weakness. So I feel like I used to be one of the strongest guys on the planet, benching almost 600 pounds. I feel stronger now, even though I couldn't bench the bar anymore. With my spinal cord injury, I tell people God streamlined and redefined me. I lost the big muscle suit, but I feel stronger now than I ever did, because our strength comes from Him, from the inside out, not the outside in. I used to, want to turn heads walking in with the muscle suit, but God gave me it turned out to be a real gift. My spinal cord injury was actually a gift. So to get that out of the way. And so I look at it as I remember when I first had spinal cord injury, I was in a tremendous rehab center called Shepherd Center here in Atlanta. That's a whole story we don't have time for. Yeah. I ended up in room 316. I could tell you an unbelievable story about that. Yeah. Go figure.
Wow.
And I had a Eeyore moment, feeling sorry for myself. But what kind of warrior for Christ am I going to be now? I was the total package in Lex Luger, which, all the mass and muscle, and they're all going to listen to me share the gospel. And now I'm this skinny guy in a wheelchair. How am I going to be a warrior in Christ now? And I was feeling sorry for myself. And that's when the chaplain at the rehab center shared that verse with me. And man, he said, "Hey, Lex," he goes, "you got a ministry right here. All these kids in here," because I found out most spinal cord injuries aren't at age 47. They're happen to teenagers.
Wow.
90% of spinal cord injuries happen to teenage boys. And there was a room full, this big room we did a rehab in, of young teenagers who didn't get to live the life I lived until before I had my spinal cord injury. He goes, "Do you realize the ministry you have in here right now, Lex? Because I noticed you've been kind of down the last couple of days." He goes, "Every eye in that room is on you when you come in there. They watch you on TV. They're seeing how you respond to this unbelievable challenge of having a spinal cord injury." He goes, "Man, what a ministry! What an example in a ministry you can give to these boys in here." Man, I was, wow! I can't describe how he spoke into me there. And when I came rolling in that room the next morning, I was like, "All right, you guys, let's get with it. No slackers in here." And they all started smiling, and the joy of Jesus was in the rehab room at a spinal cord injury center. So, yeah. So, God will use our greatest challenges or adversities many times for the greater good. Romans 8:28, right? Mm-hmm. Which is an awesome verse. All things work together for the greater good for those who love God. And there's a Romans 8:28 application right there for me, being paralyzed in a wheelchair.
Wow. But still knowing you can make an impact and let people see Jesus through you. I'm sure that you see that even when you're signing autographs and meeting fans at these wrestling events. That's not just hey, I got to meet Lex Luger. How cool is this? This might be a cool opportunity for them to hear about Jesus through you.
Absolutely. All the time.
Amazing.
I get tons of opportunities to share the gospel with those things.
I love that. I love that.
Even if it's just being a light, sometimes people respond more to more than what we say, but how we conduct ourselves. Mm-hmm. And they see a guy who was once that muscle guy in a wheelchair, smiling and having fun, and the way you can interact with them, that alone can be a great witness to them.
Totally. Well, you're being a great witness just in this conversation.
What's the old saying? Sometimes the best gospel presentation, you speak so loudly with your actions, I can't hear a word you're saying. There's some kind of saying about that.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's preach the gospel, and if necessary, use words. Somebody once said. Yeah.
But we do have to use words.
Oh, we do. Yeah, I'm not 100% on board with that quote.
I'm not 100% behind that one either. But yeah, kind of like that. And I there's a great quote that out there about if you can't. It's an encouraging quote. I think it's from Martin Luther King Jr. He said, if you can't run, if you can't fly, meaning in life you don't feel like you're soaring, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't run, walk, crawl. But whatever you do, meaning never quit, never give up. Keep on moving forward. And I kind of looked at that as well. I added a new twist to it. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. If you can't crawl because you got a spinal cord injury, roll.
There you go.
Thank God for assistive devices. So I keep on rolling.
That's Jason. Right. Well, that sounds like the perfect place to end this conversation, Lex Luger. Hey, you've been fantastic. Thank you again for being so generous with your time. Love your story, and I know it's encouraging a lot of people, so keep on keeping on, my friend.
Thank you. You too, Jason. Appreciate you, man.
Hey, thanks for watching Sports Spectrum here on YouTube. You can click our next video, or you can check out our website, sportsspectrum.com.